And I was standing here in the site when it was a brownfield site, and we were imagining the art of the possible. And I was a young woman then, and I remember, thinking, how are we going to make this happen? And then we won the games, and then we got the money to develop the assets, and then we start to make those things become real. And my part is definitely about how do we ensure that we go back to our mission, which is about changing the lives of East Londoners. So it's about growth happening, but growth happening for the good of our communities and for that growth to be inclusive.
Shazia, the world came to know the Olympic site and love it, but it's undergone a complete metamorphosis. So how did it get from what it was then to what it is now? And how would you describe what this is?
Well, that's a big question. The Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, it's had a long journey, actually, and it's travelled through what I would call a kind of a transformation that's been happening in East London, not just here on the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. So for those who don't know the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, it was at one time, before the Games, what we call a brownfield site. So contaminated land, often used for dumping, and what we call sort of dirty businesses, sort of cement mixing, and just not really cared for. And because it had multiple users and multiple owners, it wasn't always a land that people were going to invest in. So the opportunity of the Games became the catalyst for that change and for that development. And for a long time, we were just thinking about how do we master plan this space and how do we think about working with our 4 East London boroughs. So the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park sits between 4 boroughs, which is Tower Hamlets, Newham, Hackney and Waltham Forest. And that's important because it's the story of East London. It's about the transformation that's been happening in East London. But now we have the amazing Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and that's been a journey that's been travelled around, as I said, master planning, bringing inward investment into the place, bringing that public sector investment, but also then attracting the right partners like Here East, who we're here with today, but also all of our cultural quarter, developing with our universities. We've got 8 universities on the park now. And so what we have now is a place that's integrated, a district. So we speak about ourselves as an innovation district. It's got 560 acres of land, of water and greenways. It is a park in its absolute nature. It's the thing that we talk about, but within that park, there are neighbourhoods of people who live here now on the park. We're building more homes. We have a culture quarter, which is made up of some of the biggest names that you can think of, like the V&A and the BBC and University Arts London, UCL, etc. But we also have lots of micro businesses here as well, and startups, for example, within Here East as well. So it's an integrated place and a place where economic activity is happening and being regenerative for the area, for the locality of East London.
But I mean, just bringing all that together must have required such huge commitment and belief from a number of different investors and organisations.
The journey that we've travelled has been across 3 London mayors. So it started with Ken Livingstone, who really was the one who sort of conceptualised the vision around really thinking about, I think he publicly often said he didn't care too much about the sports, but what he really cared about were what was going to happen after the Games. And that was about knitting the social infrastructure of East London together. And that was between Ken and the local councillors. So the local leaders from the boroughs were really key in having that vision, that long-term vision. Then we had Boris, of course, and Boris brought with him some of that more private sector opportunities and investment. And then, of course, we've had our current Mayor, Sadiq, who's been the mayor for the last in his 3rd term. So actually that long-term investment in the culture quarter, East Bank, etc., all of those areas. So I think the single biggest thing that we've had is cross-party support for the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and also that local and national interest in making sure and investing in a place has been really key. But of course, you can't do that without the community, and you can't do that without the very people that make up East London. So really working with those sectors as well has been key for us.
I mean, it's often called a living legacy. What does that phrase mean to you?
I think for me personally, living legacy means that it keeps developing. It's not static. It's not about something that happened once. It's about it feeling real, but it's always changing. And I talk about the Queen's Olympic Park in its phases. So phase 1 was the games and the catalyst that happened, the opportunity it brought. Phase 2 was really around building and master planning. And now we're in phase 3, and we talk about this phase being about activation and optimization. So really, we've built the assets, and we're still building some of the assets, but now we want to make it continue to make that living legacy real for people, and those opportunities real for people as well.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that growth, because this is different from past regeneration of East London.
So regeneration has been happening since the 80s, even though it's been happening over sort of a 20-year period, because since the games since we won the bid. But actually, if you look at the level of development and investment we've had, it has been on such a scale, and it has been about the whole of East London. It's not just been about one micro space. And it's also about, importantly, it's about pivoting East London towards West London. And it's kind of recognising that we are creating an economic cluster, that we are creating what we call sort of polycentric places. And increasingly, if you think about the way people live now, particularly since COVID and since lockdown, people aren't just interested in the very centre of a city. What we're saying is that actually, if you look at the economic regeneration that's happening here, it is on a par with what's happening in West London. And that's about destination of place, that's about job creation, that's about innovation happening as we speak. It's about research, it's about development, and it's about investing and attracting those industries to East London as well.
Well, let's talk about job development, because, of course, those employment levels have been steadily rising. Can you give me some idea of the figures and how and why that's happening?
So we've made some. I think the investment that we've put into the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park is around 9 billion, and but we think that we've been making a return of about just over 3 billion per year since 2014. So actually, the return on the investment is really high. The other thing is that whilst we have created a lot of jobs here on the Queen Elizabeth Park itself, this isn't about just what's happening here. It's about what this place gives as an opportunity. So it's about this being somewhere which touches an individual, which enables an individual to have an experience, which importantly creates a pipeline that goes from school all the way to college to university, that enables people to be able to have the jobs and the opportunities that we may not even know about today. It's about the creation of the jobs that haven't happened yet.
You talk about these 4 boroughs, and of course, traditionally they have been fairly deprived, but you are now managing to balance growth versus inequality, and I wonder how you do that.
So, yes, the boroughs have had inequity. I think you've got to remember we've got 1.2 million people living around us across those four boroughs. A large number of those communities are from global majority, and we've got one of the highest numbers of young people across those 4 boroughs as well. That's an opportunity. And we've got organisations that have come here, like the V&A, like the BBC, like Here East, who are looking not only to transform the communities, but also transform themselves, because they recognise that the future makers, the future designers, the future market makers sit in those communities. And so actually, how do we really work with those communities to think about design, innovation, creation, talent development, all of those things that mean that this place is, that the East London is an opportunity rather than something that we extract from.
So East Bank is a major cultural investment. Can you paint a picture for me of what it will be when it's finished?
Actually, I just want to tell you a little story about East Bank. So East Bank, where it is, as you come in through Westfield, You're coming into the main entrance. I mean, the Olympic Park, you can enter it from many different ways, but this is one of the main ones. You cross over the bridge, and to your right, you've got East Bank, which looks onto the waterways. It used to be as high as the buildings are, it was piled high with fridges. Dumped fridges, washing machines, and it used to be just the Fridge Mile, I think it was called. And so it was a polluted place. If you go there now, you see the most incredible design quality of cultural institutions. So the first building you see is Sadler's Wells. The next one along that you see is the BBC Studios, music studios along there. Then you see University Arts London. And then next to that, you've got the V&A East Museum. And across the road, you've got UCL. So that is what we call East Bank. Sadler's Wells opened last year. We've had an enormous number of people attending. We've changed the diversity of the audiences. We've also changed the demographics, so much younger demographics attending than you would see in the Sadler's Wells over in Islington, and also a change in more local people attending. If you go into University Arts London, you've got students, international students from all over the world. You've got, I think it's about 10,000 students we've got at the moment, not just in University Arts London, but across our universities, which is huge, and that's ever increasing. The idea behind all of those buildings was that they would be publicly porous. The idea is that these are big institutions that are opening their doors and anybody can walk in. So the idea is to not create something that feels like it's for somebody else, but to create it for the very communities that live and are based here as well.
Which is a wonderful thing. And I mean, you've managed to avoid that sort of island vibe. It's not just for a rarefied elite. This is really for the communities. But what is the impact then for the locals?
So I think the impact, first of all, is that we've managed to have growth in here at Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, which is, I think it's nearly 3 times the growth of London. So that economic impact will be felt by our local residents. We have 20 million people that come to the park every year, which is huge. We know that we do a lot of surveys and user experience that we do to check to see how people are experiencing the park. We have high numbers of local people, very high numbers. We have identity, so people know what this place is if they compare it to other kind of key London sites. So actually we feel that we have gone a long way in terms of it feeling relevant for local people, but we've got further to go. We definitely recognise that where growth is happening, that growth needs to feel inclusive. It needs to not feel like people are feeling like they're left behind, but they're part of those opportunities. So one of the things we're doing is we're starting to really think of ourselves on a kind of informal sub-region, and we're working with the 4 East London boroughs to really think about what's the cultural experiences that they're having in their boroughs that could be linked to ours. What are the job opportunities? What's the research and development that we could be linking in? We've got 4 hospitals that are in this area. We've got 8 universities on Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, but we've also got Queen Mary's, and we've got University East London as well. The arms and the tentacles of Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park go much further than just this geography. And we're really clear that we're part of East London and we're part of the other 4 boroughs.
Now, one thing that you're also very clear about is that you want this to become a London living wage zone.
Yeah.
Just tell me what that means and why it's important symbolically as well as obviously in a concrete economic way.
We're really proud that we're one of the first places to be a London living wage zone. It means that everybody who is paid and has any kind of income or paid in any way, their wages are on a par with a London living wage. That's about equity. That's about ensuring that we live by the values that we are trying to demonstrate and show about making sure that we're not extracting from our communities, that we are enabling and enhancing them and their quality, and then reaping the benefits of what's here. So it's a really important element for us.
This is also a health innovation zone. Tell me about that.
So we've just launched the new inclusive growth framework for Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, which talks about the next phase. And we're really clear in there about our kind of 3 integrated pillars. We talk about the first one being the habitat, the place, and we call that the enabler, because actually it's the place shaping the physical environment, and all of the assets that sit within it are the opportunities that enable growth to happen. We then talk about talent and skills and jobs, which we call the engine, because without the engine, you can't get it to work. And then we talk about the third one, which is linked into the health area, which is about the foundations, which is health prevention. Because if you're not healthy, you can't have a good job. And if you don't have a good job, you can't live in a good place. So we're really clear that given that we are a living park, given that we are 560 acres of land, of blue and waterways and green spaces, we have the capabilities to be absolutely leading in terms of health innovation and health prevention. And we want to work with our health partners, and we want to set up something called the Adoption Centre, which is about really thinking about how do you take innovation and how do you make sure that we are enabling and creating mechanisms for people to adopt that innovation, whether that's to do with their health, whether that's to do with their well-being or within their homes or within their environment. And we're saying that if you want to test that out, this is the place to test it.
I mean, one of the things, and it's quite difficult to get this across just by talking, but when I come to this particular campus, I feel just enthused, but I also feel creatively motivated. There's some kind of vibe here that really makes you think, I am where it's all happening. Is there a way that you could describe that to our listeners?
Well, I think it is a place that's happening. East London is happening. It's been happening for a long time. And I think this kind of captures all of the elements of that. I think, first of all, it's the quality of design that we've created. And so when you walk in any part of the park, the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, whether you're looking up at the buildings or whether you're looking and walking along the greenways, it's an incredibly beautiful place to be in. There's something in that is about your own well-being, but also in order to be creative, you want to be in a creative space that enables that to happen. Secondly, we've got a culture quarter here, which is about artists, which is about makers, which is about bringing art and creation and cultural activity together. And really, we know the importance of that for people's well-being, but also for enabling people to be able to feel that they're part of something. They can change things, they can do things, they can build things, they can create things. So I think it is that environment, and hopefully it's the openness of what we have, that publicly porous space that we talk about, which is about attracting people to us. I think the other thing I just want to say is that the world is changing, and the next generation are looking for very different environments that they want to participate in or they want to live in, and they're wanting to have experiences, and that sort of live, work and play is integrating into one space. And I think the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park does that really well. We're going to be building 6,000 homes. We're going to have 5 neighbourhoods here. There's going to be an integration of people who live here, people who work here, and people who visit here. And it's a combination of those 3 things that start to really make us a distinct innovation district, which has all of the elements that you would expect, that do the very thing that you're talking about, which enable people to be creators of whatever that might be.
And I mean, certainly here at Here East, it's about having a creative neighbour in the next door space to you. And I think the wonderful thing is that there is still a limited amount of space here, but there are opportunities for people to come in and go, I need a part of that. I've got to work in an environment that actually enthuses me in this way.
Yeah, and it's about a lot of people nowadays are kind of these digital nomads. They move about. We've got a combination of hybrid working. People are looking for creativity because of the advancement of technology. People are looking at creativity through a very different lens. And what we want to do is create that environment for them to thrive in that. And whether that's an experience they're having because they're a visitor for the day, or they're experiencing an event that's happening or taking place, or they're visiting one of our buildings, or whether you live here, or whether you're passing through here because you're going to your home, all of those experiences, we want them to be something that's going to make you feel good, that's going to give you opportunities, that's going to make you want to thrive and be successful in what you're doing.
Of course, one of the things we haven't talked about, which I think really drives it, is leadership, and that's you. Tell me about your role in this and the extraordinary things that you've actually achieved since you came on board not that long ago.
Oh, well, thank you. Look, I'm the Chief Executive of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. My responsibility is to lead the London Legacy Development Corporation, which is a development corporation that sits under the sort of functional family of the London Mayor, just so that people understand the kind of context. So we are accountable to the London Mayor. My job my leadership is to work as a convener for this place, for the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and we are the stewards of this place, myself and my senior leadership team and our organisation. But more than that, we are about the partners. And how we work together and how we enable things to happen. So some of our work is about building things, and we've still got homes and commercial spaces that we want to build. Some of my job is about making sure that the environment is correct and it's looked after and taken care of, and it's a safe place to be in. And some of it's about the things that we haven't yet created, the things that we don't know about, the opportunities. And some of it's about working with our local boroughs and the partnerships within those boroughs to make sure that what we're creating is for the benefit of our East communities. I've been in East London for 25 years or so, and really there's not a part of East London that I don't know. And I came here to work for a regeneration organisation all those years ago, and I was standing here in this site when it was a brownfield site, and we were imagining the art of the possible. And I was a young woman then, and I remember, thinking, how are we going to make this happen? And then we won the games, and then we got the money to develop the assets, and then we start to make those things become real. And there's been leaders before me who've been part of this journey and who've created this. But I think each leader comes to play a particular part. And my part is definitely about how do we ensure that we go back to our mission, which is about changing the lives of East Londoners. So it's about growth happening, but growth happening for the good of our communities and for that growth to be inclusive.
So what does 2035 look like?
2035... feels like a long time away, but it isn't really. And we hope that we will have finished or almost finished building all of our homes. It looks like a place that people choose to live in. It feels like a place that feels affordable. It feels like a place of opportunity. And the 10-year-old today might be saying in 9 years' time that actually, because of an opportunity or because of something I experienced at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, my life is better. And I think if we can hear that from our young people of today, saying that in the future because of the creation of the things that exist here and feel relevant, then we've been successful.
Shazia, I'm sure you will be.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.